The Pharaoh sat upon his stone throne in the stone room somewhere under the city above, and fever burned through his skin. A royal physician kneeled before him, prepared for the ritual he was born to perform, the exchange of blood for eternal life. The gift of his benevolent God sat before him in the flesh. He removed the sacred blade, and taking his God's arm in his hand, he cut the flesh of his spiritual father. As the brilliant red blood began to emerge from the wound, the physician pressed his mouth to the wound as a lover might upon the sacredness of his beloved. Time slowed as the iron taste of rapture filled the physician's throat and coursed through his being in ecstasy. The Pharaoh calmly gazed down on the physician when the approach of the guards caught his attention. He looked up and caught the gaze of the tall, blond man the guards had brought into the room, a gaze that did not waver, did not yet comprehend the glory of the God it now held before it. The Pharaoh motioned for the slave to approach and kneel before him. The slave again met the intensity of the Pharaoh's gaze, and the two spent several moments locked in the intimate exchange of soul. The physician inhaled sharply as he completed his task and leaned back. Opening his eyes, he could not find the eyes of his God. They were not there to welcome him, to hold him, to thank him, to love him, to bequeath the final act of transmission. The gift of spiritual immortality, which was the sacred and ancient contract between the God-King and his physicians. Fear, bewilderment, and confusion began to swell as he beheld the face of a mere mortal on the throne before him. Following the man's gaze with a rise of anger, he came to the face of a foreigner, a face that had usurped the god's gift from its rightful heir, and now that face turned to meet the eyes of the physician. As their eyes met, the physician felt his entire existence shift on its axis. A terror of sudden, painful comprehension began to arise with such force that he thought he might explode, a sorrowful grief so deep he might drown, a certainty of undeniable truth that felt somehow like the pain of childbirth. So vast and so beyond the limits of his ability to respond, he remained frozen as his internal world fractured and shattered. He did not even notice the Pharaoh's arm wave of dismissal in his direction. It was then the Queen Mother, who was immediately behind the physician, gave a single command. A scornful word emerged that brought the Pharaoh's attention back to his duty and the sacred ritual. Anger and agitation gripped him as he reached forward, taking the blade from the physician, and proceeded to stab him in the chest, driving the blade deep into his heart. The mortally wounded physician fell back into the waiting arms of the Queen Mother, to be delivered by the Pharaoh's blood into the eternal paradise of the afterlife. The Pharaoh returned his gaze to the eyes of the foreigner, and, speaking quietly with a slight smile, said, "Do not fear. He knew his destiny.